All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the tabletop homeschooling. This topic today is going to be for socialization and extracurriculars. If you have any questions, any of the participants have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat, and I will state them as we go through. At the very end, we will have a more general Q&A where you're welcome to pop off mic if you would prefer, but otherwise, I will have you muted just to lessen the feedback going on. We are recording, just to remind everyone, so if you don't want to be on the screen as a participant, please keep your camera off. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and jump in. So I always start this by inviting the panelists to kind of talk about why they got started homeschooling. So we have Angela and Vicki here today. Angela, will you start?
Sure. Hi, my name is Angela Pounders, and I like to say that we've been homeschooling since the beginning. And my girls are 10 and 12 now, and we chose to homeschool for so we could have more family time, give our children the gift of time, and teaching them on the pace that works best for them, and also so we can instill our values as a family.
Right, that's great, Vicki. And I'm going to jump off of video for just one moment, but Vicki, if you could go ahead.
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Vicki Pitts, and I actually finished homeschooling about 10 years ago. So I'm glad Angela's with us today because she's active. I have 5 children, and I also homeschooled from the beginning all the way through all of the years of schooling. But I have 4 daughters who are currently homeschooling, and so I'm very involved in homeschooling still. Mm-hmm. I also assist with Chess, which is a local homeschooling group. So I still have my feet very much in homeschooling because I love it. But to address your question, Holly, we started years and years ago when homeschooling was not the thing and really not very well known. And there were a lot of people at our church who were interested. We went to original meetings about getting started, how to apply and do all of those things. And we just felt like this was the right thing for our family. We wanted to instill our values in our kids. We also wanted to spend more time with them. So we were around a lot of people who were thinking about homeschooling. So we were sort of drawn into it. We loved what we heard. And yeah, so I guess that's how we ended up. And it went 1 year at a time. Every year we kept doing it.
That's great. All right. So we're going to jump into the topic of socialization and extracurriculars. So how do you guys make sure that your kids are still meeting and socializing with others?
Well, ever since they were like kindergarten age, I guess you would say, well, even before that, preschool age, we did programs at the library. The library has just been like essential to our homeschooling life. We started off with, my youngest with baby story time at the library. So she was around, children that age, and just really taking advantage of the multiple kinds of programs that were available at the library as they got older. And they're also free. So that was a big plus here for this homeschooling family. And I literally planned our lessons and stuff around what the library was doing. Like, this is how much we appreciate and we love the things that are going on at the library. If Thursday is STEM day and they're doing, or Lego club or something, we're not planning anything on Thursday afternoons because we're going to the library. Mm-hmm. So that was how we started. And then as the children got older, I formed my own co-op group because I love planning events and I love planning field trips and things like that. And we're able to do the different kinds of field trips and events that they do in the public school if we get a large enough group of us together. And so then I started, planning programs through that and taking advantage of all of the things that we have going on around us, from the Manassas Museum, Fairfax County Parks, DC. I mean, we have so much around us that we can choose from.
So thank you for going first because you have stimulated my thinking. I mean, I finished 10 years ago, so I've got to really reach back there and
Yeah.
what we did. I agree with you. We did library programs as well. I can't say that I designed my curriculum around that, but we did try to take advantage of it. Actually, when I first started homeschooling, I didn't go out much during the day, just because it was not the accepted norm. And we would inevitably get questions, why aren't you in school today? So we concentrated more on after school activities. Like my oldest daughter was involved in ballet, and my second child is my son. And once he was old enough, then he became involved in sports, and that got my older daughter in sports. And then all of the other kids followed. And our church was also, an avenue for socialization because we had activities. A lot of families were homeschooling at the church, so we would plan things like an All Saints party rather than Halloween, and have a theme like Pilgrim's Progress, things like that. Angela, I'm so glad you mentioned it because years and eons ago, I did start a homeschool co-op also at our church. And just like you said, we did lots of things like we did some classes. This was once a week. It was called Mom's Day Out. And so it was a drop-off program where the moms could bring their kids, and we had different activities going on. Some of it was phys ed type activities. We had a little house on the prairie, or Little House in the Big Woods series. Just lots of different things for different age groups, which actually evolved into a homeschool support group with actual classes. But that was, like I said, years ago. Socialization was a concern for my family, the greater family, because they all thought, oh, your kids are going to be so isolated. But that never was the case. If anything, my kids were more gregarious and more outgoing and able to converse and interact with people of all ages rather than just their peers.
That's actually leads me directly into my next question. Do you prioritize your kids' socialization with their own age, others of their own age, or just focus on socializing them with people in general?
For us, I mean, the things at the library are kind of, divided by age. So, and at church, they're divided by age. So we don't really have a choice per se with that. With the group that I run, I kind of focus more on learning together as a family. So the youngest, usually I have the core age group, or around the ages of my children. So the core of my group is 8 to 12-year-olds, but younger and, older siblings are welcome. So currently in my group, we probably have from ages 2 to 12 that work for the socialization part. I mean, the 2-year-olds aren't doing the science class, though they will climb up on that table and start drawing a bug, or something. So, everyone's included. But like Vicki was saying, that my children are so they can just walk up to an adult and communicate with them. They can get along with people of all ages, because kind of from the beginning they've just been around people of all ages. And I think it teaches them compassion in dealing with younger children, and compassion dealing with older people, and just getting along with people in general. But they're really able to communicate what they need and what they want, ordering their food at a restaurant, things like that, where some other children might be kind of, shy about it. So I would say it's probably a mix. I think it's really good for them to, especially now they're getting into the puberty age and stuff, where they want to be, the 10 to 12-year-old girls and boys, want to, be with their peers. And so allowing time for that in the events and things that we do. I do plan some things that are just for fun. Like we just have a park day. We're all going to go and hang out and do whatever we want. There's nothing structured, planned. And so they do get that one-on-one time with, with their peers, as well as how to get along with the group as a whole.
I also, at the homeschool group that I started, which became a series of classes, I taught Spanish, and I actually would have adults take my Spanish class with the kids. Not very many, you know, 1 or 2 each year in isolated classes. Perhaps it was a parent. Sometimes it was just another adult who knew me, knew I was teaching, wanted to take a class. And it was really good. It was really good for the other kids to have, you know, an adult in there who's on the same level they are basically in this subject. So yeah, so like your family groups, it's fantastic for the kids.
Great. All right, moving on to extracurriculars. Did you guys have to do anything specific to keep your kids active? I mean, it sounds like they were pretty active in general, but is there anything specific that you have done to encourage that?
Go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, with mine, our group keeps us pretty busy in what we're doing. I do get their input, you know, of what they would like to do, since I'm kind of planning all of it. And they'll say, you know, I think it would be really cool if we went here, if we went there. Or when they were younger, you know, if they were really into animals, choose to go, you know, to those kinds of places. But like, we haven't ventured into like the sports and music classes and stuff like that yet in our family. More of just doing like the group events and field trips. And we really have missed the library events over the past, you know, year and a half, I guess we're at now. That left like a big void for us. You know, people are like, oh, things haven't changed much for you guys. I'm like, no, like the library is so important, checking out books and touching the books and checking them out. And so, so yeah, life did change for us, even though we're, you know, at home teaching our children. And there were a lot of places that we couldn't go, you know, because places were closed too. But I mean, my girls are always wanting to do stuff. So we have to plan times where we're home.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, yeah, people are like, what? I'm like, no, I plan home days, because there's just so many great opportunities around here for us that, I mean, it's important to be home sometimes too.
Yeah. We live in a rural location, so my kids would play outside all the time. We don't have close neighbors, so that does mean that I had to be intentional about having other friends over to spend time with them. However, I will have to say that all of my kids are best friends today. You know, they learn to get along, they learn to be together all the time, and they enjoy being together, even today with all of their families, big families. So other extracurricular activities I wanted to mention. My oldest daughter this year, her history program consisted of reading a book from the library, if she could get it, about each president. So starting with George Washington, they went through, I don't know where they are. She told me they're a little bit behind. But we also, and I was always invited and always participated because I love field trips, we would try to go to a president's home, because we have so many in this area that we can visit. My husband and I also took one of her children with us when we went to visit another daughter who lives in the Nashville area. And on the way, we went to Andrew Johnson's home, stopped there, which is in Tennessee, so that he could visit that. Now, that wasn't the whole family, but it was an opportunity for him. And then also we went to James Polk's home, which with my other daughter and her family when we were in Tennessee. So we just take advantage of things like that. We just love to do, I don't know, learning activities. It's so much much more worthwhile than just to read it in a book. If you can put hands on and look around you and see things, you have just a much better memory of what you've learned. So I'm all about stuff, doing things, going places. I don't know how much time you have for this. I don't want to take up all your time, but in 1996, we planned and took a trip west in the summer for the whole month of June. We drove, and my kids were all in the planning stage. They were ages 16 to 6. And it was it was totally a learning experience. My oldest daughter had to do the budget. Each kid who was old enough had to write a daily summary of what we did each day. So that was a writing assignment. I mean, this is in the summer. This is June, okay, the month of June. But it was the most worthwhile experience because they all remember that trip. Why? Because they had to write about it. My oldest daughter also, poor girl, had to write for the youngest one, the 6-year-old, and I had to do it for the 8-year-old. So we all had responsibilities. My husband did all the driving. We camped, you know, they had camping responsibilities. We sometimes we stayed in hotels. We told them we were going to camp 2 nights and stay in a hotel the 3rd night. We did that for the most part until we stayed 7 nights in a camp in the Utah area. And my son, who hates camping to this day, was about to revolt. But it was a great experience. And they learned so much about the places that we visited. I don't know if you want me to talk anymore, but we went to, we loved the Little House on the, Little House in the Big Woods, Little House on the Prairie. We went to several of those locations. We planned in Focus on the Family because my kids loved listening to Focus on the Family broadcast for the kids. So we just really, we were very intentional about the places that we went and what we did when we got there, and having tons of experiences. And it was just one of the most worthwhile trips that we ever took, and the best trip we took as an entire family.
That's great. So really an ultimate field trip.
Yeah.
Field trip, yeah.
I want to go.
Well, it's you know, you can do it inexpensively. I mean, we saved for it. We planned really well, so it's doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is great. So we did have a question pop in the chat. And in what capacity do your kids help educate each other? Did the older teach the younger a topic or vice versa? How did that work? It sounds like you at least had some of your older kids, Vicki, helping with the younger ones on assignments.
Yes, I did. I had 5 children that I was homeschooling at one time. And so each of my kids had a kitchen day, and they didn't have schoolwork that day. So they were responsible for preparing lunch, all 3 meals actually for all of us. So that freed me up. Working together, teaching, I don't think I had them doing anything except for my oldest daughter taught or tried to teach the 2 youngest ones piano. And that really did not work very well. They just were not willing to listen to her. So I ended up having to do that. So I had them working together a lot on different, in different subjects. Like I would have, let me think. I had, well, my youngest 2, my 4th child was a bit delayed. So she and her sister worked together on most of their assignments. So I pretty much had them going through school together. So that helped in one sense as well. I will say that as a grandmother, I do teach reading now to 2 grandchildren that are in the Nashville area through FaceTime. And so I still have my foot in the door. And so I would encourage anybody who has grandparents who are willing to help to let them do what they can, even through FaceTime. It works. It really does. And it's a way to stay connected. So the 2 that I work with this morning, the younger one, she's in the earlier stages of reading. So she's every day, half hour. The other one, the older one who can read to me, reads for an hour twice a week when it fits into my schedule. So we just work out our schedule on a weekly basis. And then there's another younger one. And he often, like today, will say, "Oh, can you read me a story after you're finished?" And so then I end up reading him a story as well. So I do my reading, they do theirs. But it's just really an avenue that you should pursue, you know. There are other people who would like to get involved and would like to assist and have a relationship with your children.
Great. Angela, what about you? Do your kids help support each other with educating each other?
I would say not formally, but I think it just happens. If the younger one is having trouble with something, the older one will come over like, well, you need to do this first, or you need to do that. It's funny that you say that, or the question comes up because my oldest now, because I do a lot of, the teaching in our co-op, she wants to teach a class. And so she wants to teach a class about owls because that's something that she's learned a lot about just on her own this year. And so, I mean, she's 12. And so I was like, I think I might do that with my group and have kids sign up to teach, like a little 15-minute lesson or something. And, that they'll be working on public speaking, they'll be getting their information together, they'll be thinking about their peers and maybe have a worksheet or a project or something like that. But she's asked me a couple of different times to do that, and I thought that would be so cool for your extroverted children who want to do that, to give them the the teacher of the day kind of thing, but it wouldn't be for the whole day, to get to do that and teach her peer. So that's something I'm looking at for the upcoming school year. But I think it just happens naturally in our home, as far as if they need some help with with whatever they're doing, or reading the rules of a game, or things like that.
Angela, I think that's a fantastic idea, because that on so many avenues, the kids would learn so much. When you're a teacher, you really have to learn your subject matter. Yes. And public speaking, getting up in front of your peers, there's just so many pluses for doing that and allowing the kids to do that. I did want to add that yesterday I had 3 grandchildren here, and they happened to take piano lessons from me, but they were here most of the day. And so I had them working on theory, because theory is not something kids like to do. And they tend to skip theory. So I said, okay, make sure you bring your theory books, because you're going to sit around the table and you're going to work on theory today. And one of the girls, let's see, she's 10. She wanted to help her 8-year-old sister. The other one, the boy did too, with it. And I said, no, you can't help, because I'm afraid you're just going to tell them. I want them to think it through. I want them to try to work on it. I want them to try to figure it out on their own. And then I'll help, because I'm here today. But when I'm not with you, you can help them. So I do see that they, like you said, informally, they just want to step in. Kids like to show that they know something. We all do. We all like to share what we know. And so kids do too. And actually allowing them to do so is a great thing.
Great. All right. So we've talked briefly about field trips, and we'll come back to it, but I want to go first into a question that was submitted to us. Angela, you'll probably know, of you both, you'll probably know the answer to this more.
Okay.
Because it has to do with our area of Manassas Park.
Oh, okay.
So what extracurriculars, if any, does Manassas Park City School allow homeschoolers to take or do, and how would they find out about them?
That's a very good question. Now, we haven't looked into that yet. Okay. I do know, there's been questions about that in the Homeschooling in Virginia page, about sports and band and things like that. So I know the discussion is out there, but unfortunately I don't have, a good answer for that. I think contacting the schools would probably be the best way to find out about that. But my girls are just 10 and 12, so we haven't really looked into that. And it would be like after school, kind of stuff. I don't know how that works with like band and football or all of those different things.
Yeah, I don't know either. When my kids were in school, we were not allowed to participate as homeschoolers. I think that has changed somewhat now, but I don't know exactly what the parameters are. How many classes, like can they take Spanish and another class, chemistry? At one point I heard that it was 2. My kids were all soccer players, and we really did want them to be able to participate in soccer at the public schools, and we were never allowed. It was never passed during the whole time that my kids were,
Mhm.
being homeschooled. And we live in Prince William County on the western side. So I really am not really familiar
Right.
with Manassas Park City. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, of course. Angela, you mentioned that it's something going around in the homeschooling Facebook group.
Yeah, Homeschooling in Virginia, that's run by Heave, which so many acronyms out there,
Mhm.
HEAV, but Homeschooling in Virginia is the Facebook page. They also have a website, usually pretty good, if you just type in the search bar and it will come up. But I just haven't looked at it specifically for Manassas Park.
Yeah, makes sense. I will also do a little bit of research from my end and see what I can find and include that in our resources group for anyone who is interested, for what I find on schools allowing homeschoolers to participate. So take a look at that, anyone who is interested. So circling back around to field trips, what is your guys' favorite field trip? I mean, it sounds like Vicky, yours might be that West Coast trip, but otherwise, what is your favorite field trip? And as a side note, just because I have a feeling that the information will most likely work its way into here, what are some of the field trips that you can do in the area? So the Northern Virginia area.
I think for my family, we like history and nature. And so anything that we've done, along those lines. One that I can think of in particular, there's so many, like I've been doing this for, for so long. We went to Liberia House in Manassas, and I took the kids around. We did a walking tour. They just recently put in some signage, so as you're walking, you can read about the different, areas and stuff. So we did a walking tour. This was COVID time, so this was me leading the tour instead of setting up something official. And we walked through and, we talked about the different areas and stuff. And then we sat down at the front of the house where like the horses would come in. They have like this circle there. We all sat down with our art supplies and we drew the house. And so we were outside, yay. We were learning about history, yay. And then I threw in the art aspect. And so the kids just all sat there quietly. And so you can draw anything from that you can see from where you're sitting. And most of them drew the front of the house. But you need to have rulers, it's just totally open, like however you want to draw it. They were allowed to bring whatever mediums they wanted to create their pictures. And they loved it. And then to get them used to that public speaking and getting in front of people and stuff, I say, if you want to, I'm not going to force anybody, but you can come up here and you can share what you did, and then we all cheer for them and everything, and they run around the field for a few minutes and we're done. But those kids have been talking about that trip. It was just a simple, it was free, local, and it was just awesome. I took just my girls years and years ago. I was brave. We had watercolors and cups of water, and we sat out and we painted the house. And my girls remember that, and they're like, "And we came here when I was little." I love when kids say that. And so just using what we have around us, and it didn't tie into, and we're all doing our own thing at home. So it's not like it tied into the time period we're doing in history, or anything like that. But everyone had a great time. And so I have so many favorite trips. I really love the Fairfax County parks. My family, we kind of go there because I have families kind of from both sides. So that's a good place for us to meet in the middle. And one thing I wanted to throw, I don't think they're doing it this summer, but they do just Discovery Trail Map. And so Fairfax County Parks did that every year except last year. I don't think they're doing it this year, but and they have a theme. So usually there's some kind of historical thing to it. And you would have a map of all of these historical parks and places that you can go, and you earn a stamp. And so we would make that like our summer program that we would do, and we would go like once or twice a week to one of these different areas on the map, and we would learn about it. I mean, you can just go and walk through a park and not, what's the history of Eleanor C. Lawrence Park? We go there all the time, but I'm not going to do a lesson right now. But on our map, it talks about that. I was trying to think, the Sully Historic House or whatever. The Dallas Airport was supposed to go there, so there's just all these cool like historical things, and then we go and we walk and we picnic, and they would get a prize at the end of the summer, and it would be coupons that you could use at the parks throughout the year, like for a free carriage ride or train ride or things like that. Not that there has to be an award at the end of everything that you do, but that was kind of fun. So then when we went to the parks the next year, we were able to use those coupons. So one time I paid for us to ride the train in the last like 5 years because we got those coupons. And so it helps, to defray the costs of things too. So just looking for things that are already out there. You don't need to recreate the wheel. I don't need, what am I going to do for summer? Just look and see what's available. I've even run my own summer camps, which was fun. Homeschool summer camp. We just met at a local park and I did lessons, so there's just so much out there. We have DC, Manassas Park. There's so much history where we are, and the Manassas Museum does field trips. There's just so much that you can. We were just at Bloom's Park a couple of weeks ago, which is right by your library.
It is.
And, not everything has to be a learning moment, which I discussed in a previous time, but to read those signs about the park and why the park is there and why it used to be there, and just walking and taking in the nature. And there's so much that we can do out there. It can be overwhelming because there is so much to choose from, but you really got to know what, like Vicki said, just have intention with what you're doing. I mean, you could just go to places all the time, but really think about what's the purpose, and the purpose can just be fun too. It doesn't need to be, because we have to learn history, that stuff's just, I feel, is just going to happen naturally.
It is.
So I could go on and on, but I'll stop.
Let's see. Along with the Discovery program, there's the Junior Ranger program to national parks. Now that's spread out a little bit more, but even with the ones in our area, which we always enjoyed picking up the booklets and working on the badges that you can get at the national parks. Trying to remember, this isn't a field trip. Maybe it's okay if I talk about it. At one point, we did unit studies. I remember it was KONOS, which probably isn't around any longer, but it was a program where a lot of the subjects were interrelated. So, so we would do history and we would do English words related to the history, whatever. We decided to do a medieval feast, and so we actually did. Our family did it. We did all the cooking, the bread bowls, the trenchers. We had turkey drumsticks. I'm trying to remember what else we had. We dressed up in the period to issue the invitations to the people that we were giving invitations to. We had a longhorn and we would just show up at their house and stand out front. It was the weirdest thing, but we all remember it. We had, my husband was the master of ceremonies. He had a scroll with the program, and we had a king, the bean contest, something about where whoever got the bean and the cake was the king of the feast and the queen of the feast. And we had, and this goes along with the socialization, Holly, because we didn't just invite kids. This was for adults too. So so it was fun. It was intermingling. Everybody had to dress. We had a big room at the time that was unfinished with a fireplace, so it was just perfect. And it was really the most exciting, and my kids will all still be able to tell you about that. My one daughter dressed up as the bear, and my son was the bear trainer for the part of the entertainment. We had a bard who sang, so it was just fantastic. And
that's great.
You can just let your mind roam with all of that stuff. Recently, my husband and I were in Berkeley Springs, and there's a castle there. I'm all about castles. It's privately owned, but I came home and looked it up, and it said that they rented it out. So then I concocted this great idea. I thought we could rent this out, and we have all, our kids that have kids who could dress, but it didn't materialize, but it was a great idea. And I still have it on the back burner, just have a castle party and dress up. With these experiences, it's just, it's fun. It's a lot of work. But it's very worthwhile too in the long run. Field trips, maybe not local, Holly, but my oldest daughter did a field trip 2 years ago to Philadelphia, and we spent the night there and then toured with just with her older kids, and that was a fantastic trip. We did so many things, and I think she had done that with another family through their co-op. This other woman had organized it, so it was great because neither she nor I could do any of the planning. We just showed up and joined the tour, and it was fantastic. But it was very worthwhile. I mean, her kids and I still remember what we learned there. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, if I could just jump in, we talk about going places and doing things, and Vicki, that was, just a great example. You don't have to go anywhere, to do things. You can do it at home. We would reserve a room at the library, and we would have our own Dr. Seuss party, and I would just have stations set around with, with different activities. And that's, one of those things that the girls remember when we made oobleck and we had, and so it doesn't, you don't have to physically go somewhere. And I mean, especially nowadays with the internet and everything online, you can go on the castle tour, on your computer if you can't get somewhere. So there's a lot, that you can do. I want to throw out a name, Hip Homeschool Moms. They do a thing where they, it's a separate group for their travel, but they set up, they went to Niagara Falls, for example. Yep. I think year before last, and they do all the planning and everything and try to get you, discounted costs and things like that, for homeschoolers all over, I guess all over the world, but probably just the US. I mean, they do have people from all over the world. And they plan these trips. They did one out west. Before that, they actually did one in the DC area, I think 2 years ago, which is like, we're here all the time, but for other people, it's a big deal, and Spa Museum and things like that. So there are resources out there where, if you don't want to do all the planning.
That's great.
I might also mention that I think I said that I had taught Spanish for 20 plus years at the one homeschool group in Gainesville, and at the end of it, when my kids were older and I didn't require so much of me at home, I started participating with educational tours, or Education First, EF tours. And they did everything for me. I just was the group leader and tried to enroll students. And we went to Europe mostly. But I did, 5 or 6 trips with them, which, those are more expensive, of course, but they were so worthwhile because you don't spend any time trying to figure out how to get from one location to another. They have it all planned out. They have so many activities, and they switch the activities up because not all kids are interested in the art museum or wherever else you might go. But those kinds of things are so worthwhile. First of all, I think everybody should travel out of the country because I think you learn to appreciate America if that transpires. But then also, in literature and reading, the places that you visit come alive because you've been there. And it's, basically hands-on experience. So that's another avenue.
Yeah, great. Thank you. What would you guys say was, and at different stages, if you're able to, your kids' favorite activity, extracurricular, field trip, anything like that?
I know my girls love story time at the library. I'm not getting paid to give all these positive things about the library, but they would really look forward to it. I remember back in the day, we had to get like a craft stick when we came in, you know, and I would always be so stressed out to get, anyone could come to story time, but only a certain number of kids could do the crafts. They changed that. Then they, you know, they didn't have a maximum, but that stress to get there and get that craft, those 2 craft sticks, you know, when the second one was older, it was like, oh my gosh. But they loved that. They loved going and being around the other children and singing. They did music in motion at the library, which what kid, well, I was gonna say what kid doesn't love to dance, but if your kid doesn't, that's okay. But you know, just a lot of the things, you know, at the library, really, we could do different kinds of art projects that we, you know, it wouldn't make sense for me to buy a whole bunch of something at home, you know, because if it's just the 2 of us, but to be able to go there and be messy and, you know, do everything at the library, you know, that was nice. And I would also learn about new things like, oh, well, maybe we could buy some of this kind of paper for home if I don't have to buy, you know, 200 pounds of it. But so they really enjoy the library things. My youngest really loves like the nature outings. Because I just asked her, I said, you know, what do you want to do for the summer? And so I call it nature adventures is what we call it in my group. She's like, nature adventures. And so for our group, that's just an unstructured time for them to be outside. I might bring nets or buckets, depending, you know, like on where we're going, magnifying glasses. But we're just all out together. There's nothing structured going on. And I think my oldest she's 12. So I think she's at the age where she likes doing the events. She likes to help me plan the parties and stuff that we do, and like planning things with the theme, and just having, you know, having that time with her friends. Game day has been pretty popular. We all just get together and bring a board game, and, you know, a room at the library, or, you know, you can meet at a park or whatever. We've done outside games where they're more physical, but just, you know, and you're working on teamwork, things when, you know, it's just 2 of us at home, we can't play kickball, you know, and so when, you know, we can't have relay races and things like that. So it's fun to get together and all the kids play. So, you know, we're going to let the 4-year-old run down and we're going to cheer him on as much as we do the 10-year-old, and your team might not win, but that's okay. Like, he gave it his all, you know, and then sometimes I do split it up by age because, you know, they want, you know, the older ones are really competitive, you know, right, or whatever. But yeah.
Great.
I'm not sure I can think back.
Well, what about your grandkids?
Well, let's see. All of my kids live in places where they can play outside a lot. They have enough land that they can run and play and swim. I mean, one of them lives where they have a pond on their property, and so they're just outdoor people. I know my daughter, who did live in Fairfax County, now lives in Prince William County, Manassas, probably the Manassas area. But she takes advantage of all of the free things in the summer, the concerts that are offered at various parks. She usually sends out an email with them all listed and saying, anybody want to join us because we plan to participate. Her kids just love to be out, and she has 7, so she's looking for free things because can't afford to pay for that many kids. So you know, Holly, I was thinking about the socialization too. I think that's okay, right?
Of course.
Because for this discussion, I was remembering that when my kids were older, they would take classes out of the home, sort of like I took Spanish. Well, there was a person who taught biology. I don't like science. I don't teach science very well. And so it was great to have them go to a science class, which met, I'm not even sure. I think it met at the school, the public school, but he did it after hours. He was a public school teacher initially, and then it transferred to a church. But they also took art lessons, some of them. And that was not just kids in the class. So your socialization, whether you're with just peers or whether you're with older people as well. And then honestly, my last two kids, their last 2 years of school, I was done with homeschool. And so I was the administrator. I chose what they were going to study and how they were going to study it and where they would go to take their classes if they went. They didn't do it, some of it they did at home, math they did at home, and probably reading, I don't know, literature. But some of them, once they could drive, they went to the community college.
Mhm.
And once again, they were not with just kids.
Right.
So, but by that time, I felt like they were old enough to stand on their own 2 feet, and they were out and about enough that it was not an issue. They fit right in. They did well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I should say, all of my students, all of my students, my kids have a degree. One has from the community college. What is that? What is that degree?
Associate?
Yeah, associates. All the others have a bachelor, 2 have masters. So, I don't feel like I was the best teacher. I wasn't a good science teacher. I probably wasn't even a good literature teacher, although I love to read. I don't want to read all the books they had to read. But they learned to learn on their own. They learned to be independent. And so I feel like we did fine. They could have maybe had a better education, but then they wouldn't have gotten the character, perhaps, or some other aspect that we were focused on if they had gone to school.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Does any of our participants have any questions before we jump into some last tips or anything like that from our panelists? You're welcome to jump off of mic and ask, or type it in the chat. We'll give it a minute or two. All right. So any last tips for socialization or extracurriculars that you guys can think of to give any of our participants or viewers later?
One thing, I've never gotten a socialization question. Everyone talks about, people go, what about socialization? I've never gotten that question. I know it's a different time than when Vicki was, was teaching. There are a lot more homeschoolers around. We can go out during the day. Very rarely do I get, was there no school today? But usually it's, you homeschool, I can never do that. Like that. And that's the end of the conversation. But I would love to, if, parents are interested, I love to empower parents. Parents are their children's first teachers. And I believe if someone really wants to make it happen, they can make it happen. There are a lot of resources, a lot of us out here who are willing to help. One thing about the extracurricular activities, field trips, things like that, it can become too much. I'm not saying like you need to be sitting there at the books, but at the same time, being out all the time, like I don't know, like I'm big on the hands-on learning and things like that. And I think it's important to take downtime as a family too. Everything doesn't have to be a structured learning time. You can go take a field trip just for fun to go see clowns roll around, in a circle or something, it doesn't have to turn into something else. Then again, we've done fun things and that's turned into, how long does it take for a clown to put on their makeup? Like there just questions might come out of that, but don't think that your homeschool is lacking because you're in a time right now where you can't get out of the house. Maybe you do have 6 children under the age of 8. It's just not going to be doable for you right now. So I don't want anyone to feel that, inferior or they're not doing a good enough job because they're not out and about and going on a field trip every week, or they don't have their nature walk every week. You can walk around your backyard. You don't have a backyard, walk around your neighborhood, so I don't want anyone to leave here feeling like, wow, they've done these awesome trips and, she likes to plan this and do that. And I'm over here like, I don't even know what's for dinner, but I don't either. It's okay. But just to really, do what you can. and don't compare yourselves to other families. I mean, there have been groups that I've been in and I go, oh my gosh, or Pinterest, like, if it's making you feel bad about yourself, distance yourself from it. Okay. If it's going to help you learn and aspire to something, that's great. But don't look at things and feel bad about yourself. Every family is different. If you have introverts, they might not want to be out all the time. My youngest will say, is tomorrow home day? If we had a really busy day out the day before, and so you really need to take the needs, especially the more kids that you have, into consideration, of your entire family. My oldest could probably go out every day. I need to get stuff done at home and my youngest likes having that break. So it's really about, a balance, but please don't compare to what you're doing, and your seasons of life change. As those 6 kids get older, it's going to be easier for you to get, it's hard with 2 sometimes, it's going to be easier for you to get out and do things. And as far as cost goes, we've already said that there are a lot of things out there that don't cost a lot of money that are going to still be, for lack of a better word, effective in for your homeschool.
Fun, interesting things. I think that's great advice.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, it is great advice, because I know I can say that my daughters, all of them they're constantly questioning themselves. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough? And it's probably a natural response.
It is.
But you do the best that you can. You just do the best that you can. And know that your children are getting you, which is really important. You as their mom. They're getting quality time. They're getting books read to them, which, maybe they can do that, in the school system. But I really do think that homeschooling affords families the opportunity to get to know each other really well, and to work together, to learn together, to develop independence, character, to work on character issues, to take care of issues when they come up, because they do. But anyway, yes, I agree with you about the extracurricular activities. When my oldest children were young, we didn't go out, as I said. So we didn't do all these things. We couldn't. We could do it on the weekends or at night. So what did we do? We did lessons like dance and sports. And I always said that my older kids got me because I was here all day long. My younger 2, we were much more active. Like you said, you have an older family, you can go out, times changed. We could go out and do things. And I always say that they got my money. The kids got my money because I put them in classes like the biology and art, whereas the younger kids didn't. I couldn't take them to art class, the older ones. I had younger kids.
Yeah.
So, just like you said, seasons change, and every year you do things differently. It just happens.
And like you said, Vicki, you have to take each year, even if you're homeschooling for the long term, you just got to take each year.
Yeah, that's great. And I did also want to throw in here before we finish, just as a point out, we didn't really touch on it because it was more socialization and extracurriculars today, but you don't need to have a degree to be a homeschooling parent. We've had previous panelists talk about the fact that she never went to college. She homeschooled for her kids' entire life, but she never had that teaching background that some people feel that they need to have, or never had any subject matter background for anything else. So you don't have to have that in order to homeschool. I just like to throw that in if it doesn't naturally come up in our conversations, just to build off of, you don't have to do everything the same way that other people do. That's something that as we go through these panels, you panelists just keep telling me and teaching me, every single person, everyone does it slightly different, and that is perfectly okay. And whatever is best for your family seems to be what works the best.
Exactly.
Well said.
All right. So that will be it today. The next one will be next Thursday, June 10th at noon, and the subject will be, or topic will be homeschooling and life balance. So making sure that you have time for both the homeschooling and everything else. Thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.